Hey students, it's your professor here. Back with another video for you guys today. It's a pretty important topic. I think it's probably one of the more important ones that we're really going to do in this class. So stay tuned and I'll tell you a little bit more about what's going on. Okay? Welcome students to our first video lecture on nonverbal behavior. So as you may have kind of picked up in that initial clip, I was kind of acting a little bit different than I normally would. And maybe now that you know the topic of the video, you kind of understand the point that I was getting at. But what I want to do here in this video is to just take you and walk you through sort of with me the mindset that I typically have when I go and I meet with a client and what I'm looking at and evaluating and thinking about their nonverbal behavior. I think the book does an absolutely phenomenal job of really giving you a lot of important information, but I also think that it's very important that you sort of understand exactly how we are using this stuff that we're giving you out in the field. So that's what I want to do here. Perhaps the most important thing that we assess as counselors when we're working with an individual is something called affect. Affect, very simply, is the way that your emotion is communicated through your facial expression. I think we all kind of understand what a depressed facial expression looks like and a happy one, and it is pretty consistent across most cultures. So the very, very first thing that we want to think to ourselves is, does the individual's affect or facial expression match the situation or the content of whatever it is they're talking about? So for example, if someone is telling me that their wife just left them and their dog just died, and yet they're laughing and smiling, this is going to give me some pretty important information. I'm going to be pretty concerned that something may be very wrong with this individual. Many times, if you're finding someone really laughing or smiling, in my experience, there tends to be a deep problem, something like a psychotic disorder, although some people actually do have that sort of nervous reaction to negative events. But at least now I know, okay, I need to figure this out here. This doesn't match, and I need to figure out whether this individual is really truly in touch with reality or whether this is just their sort of defense mechanism way of coping with something sad. Now, on the flip side of that, if someone is telling me I'm fine, there's nothing wrong, and yet they're crying hysterically, obviously I know that they're not fine. And that does happen actually quite a lot. And I find that it's very, very helpful to actually bring it up to the person and just sort of point it out in a non-judgmental way. Say something like, I hear you telling me that you've gotten over your husband's affair, but I also see you crying really hard. So, and kind of leave it out there for them to then give you the explanation. And chances are good probably that, the truest advice, the truest evidence probably is what you're seeing versus what you're hearing from the individual. The other thing with affect is we want to see whether or not it remains consistent over time. So certainly as you're talking to someone for a length of time, there is a good chance that the topic of your conversation will change. And so certainly at sometimes the person may be smiling and doing better. At other times they really may be crying and it might be appropriate. But one thing that we want to look for is something called lability or a labile affect. And that means that their affect is changing rapidly throughout the time that you're talking, going from laughing to crying to sad to happy, all across the board. And typically you'll find when that's the case that it doesn't exactly match the content of information in the situation. And something like lability is kind of a big red flag for those of us in counseling that something is probably very wrong with this individual. All right, students, I think I've tortured you enough today. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I do want to invite anybody that has any questions, comments, concerns, whatever. I'm always just an email or text message or phone call away. And I also encourage you to start up a discussion thread on something that maybe the video brought to light for you, or anything you guys want to add to, because I really enjoy learning from you guys as much as you do from me. All right, thanks so much and take care. Bye-bye.